Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my first edition of Talking About Country. Very happy to be here. I want to thank my friend Chris Potty for lining this up. I was friends with Chad. Chad's Melchert here. You're in Edmonton, correct, sir?
That's right. Yeah, just outside in Morinville. So if anyone's from the area or knows the area, that's where I actually live. Yeah.
Sunny and balmy Edmonton.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So thanks for doing this, Chad, here in our inaugural episode of Talking About Country. So for starters, we were texting a little bit, and you're a drummer. You played with a lot of heavyweights. You started off as a metal guy. You were telling me you were a metal guy before you get into the country genre.
Yeah, it was a lot of long hair playing, I think it's of that age group where it was Metallica and the early Metallica, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, a lot of that stuff early, which, kind of creates a good base for solid drumming anyway, just hit them hard.
Absolutely. So when did you make the switch? Because I mean, you're a player in the country music genre now. You play with some heavyweights. We'll go to that in a couple of minutes. But when did you kind of, I guess, make the switch, and what kind of made you decide to do that?
I think predominantly, I went to Red Deer College for music for 2 years. It was really coming out of that I wanted to make a living, and really where I live, I would compare it. It's not exactly like Texas, but there's a lot of country here, and the money was, and the gigs were actually in country. So I grew up playing a lot of country just around Saskatchewan, where I was born and raised. And so I was familiar with it. And I would say that's kind of when the Garth Brooks, Dwight Yoakam, Alan Jackson stuff kicked into full gear. So there was a lot of work. So that's really what kicked it into gear for me.
So, I told you I'm a drummer myself, and I'm a rock guy. Some people talk about, I guess, the new country or whatever it is, and they basically say it's rock music with kind of country singers, and I don't necessarily think that's the case, but what's your, I guess, interpretation of where things are with it these days?
It's kind of going back to a lot of more traditional stuff too. So I would say, to the Jason Aldean phase of it, there's definitely a lot of rock elements to it, but I think the subtleties, the ability to swing and shuffle still lived in country and never went away. So, yeah, I mean, it certainly is. I would say more in the guitar world than anything. It was more of the heavy metal type of vibe than anything. The drums still had some finesse to them. Not saying that rock doesn't have finesse, but it's just a little bit more of that shuffle and swing. You got to be able to do that stuff quite well to really cover what country can do.
I'd agree, because I mean, country is a genre. I mean, you have your outlaw stuff, but it still kind of had that, I'll call it on the beat kind of vibe to it, as opposed to like a behind the beat or that type of thing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it would be like even going back to the Deep Purple days. I mean, those guys were swinging as hard as anyone, and it was heavy. I mean, and I would say that's kind of where the country thing, you have to have that touch to be able to play heavy but still swing.
So when I talked to Potty gave me don't hold that against me. He's one of my dear friends. But
he's a beauty.
Yeah, Chris is great. So he sort of laid out who you played with, but why don't you give us just a sense of, for the viewers here, because this will be shown all over the world. What your background, who you've played with, and those types of things.
Well, the general outline of my career, apart from freelancing, which has been a huge part of it, was I always anchored myself with one gig at a time. Usually, early on, it was with a young country singer named Adam Gregory, who some people might remember. He was about 13 years old when he had his first big hits with a song called Horseshoes. So I kind of came into that band at a great time. He was busy in Canada, and then we made the jump to Nashville. Lived there for a few years right in Nashville, played the Opry with him a few times. Unfortunately, that kind of came to an end around 2008 when the economy hit the dirt really bad. So came home, worked with him a little bit longer, and then went into the Gord Bamford situation. I was band leading there for a while. I was there quite a few years, actually, all the while freelancing and really keeping a really busy studio schedule and filling those holes when those guys weren't busy with everybody else. So you could pretty much name any country singer or a good portion of them, and I've worked with them, whether it's on the CCMAs or filling in for another drummer or in the studio. So the list is long. Very grateful for the career that I've been able to have and play with so many great people over the years. But those are predominantly the two big gigs. The only other one I would mention is I did the We Will Rock You Queen musical for a year right prior to the pandemic. So I was kind of dipping my toes in the theater world and really enjoyed that part of it too. So, but yeah, that's the bulk of it. And then literally played with everybody else at some point, it seems.
You hit a lot of markers there, so I want to try to pick them up because on my other podcast, one of the things we cover a lot, it's Rim Shots with Sean, we cover a lot is the value of networking. So in this day and age, people there's this thing of, oh, you got to audition and you got to do this and you got to do that. And a lot of people I talk to when they get gigs, they know somebody who knows somebody, and then it becomes this is a person you want because they show up on time. They're prepared. They're a good person to hang out with. What's been your experience with how you've been getting your gigs? Is it networking? Is it auditioning? Is it a little bit of both?
Early on, it was definitely the networking piece, and that was, I would say, a way different generation as far as I was thinking about this the other day when I got my first endorsement. It wasn't with social media. There wasn't any of that at the time. Right. I literally drew up a business plan and shared how many bars I'd be playing and how many people would be in each bar throughout the year. So it's the game's changed massively now. I mean, you could put out YouTube videos and get some sort of an endorsement going now. Really, that's the biggest change I've seen is social network is a big piece of it. But at the end of the day, all business is done with who you know. And I would say when you're looking to, I always look at when I'm going to recommend somebody, who do I think of? Who comes to mind? It's somebody who's reliable, someone who's great to get along with, and someone who will make you look good. I mean, you don't want to recommend somebody who's going to show up and not do a good job. So I try to be that person that I recommend, essentially. How do I want that person to be? And that's how I try to act. Give everyone the same respect when they hire me, learn the songs properly, show up on time, and be a professional.
Very important, and thank you for re-emphasizing that, because that seems to be the message time and time again when I ask that question, so thank you. You mentioned you did some stuff down in Nashville, and so the scene that you're in and where you live, I mean, I've talked to people that have been to Nashville, that live in Nashville, and there's a certain, I don't know if you call it etiquette, but you just don't show up and the door's open for you, and away you go, right? I had another guy that say, you don't make it Nashville makes you type thing, and what have you. Is the Canadian scene similar to that, in that, you have to pay your dues and there's kind of a pecking order and a grind to get there, or is it a little different up here?
I would say it's not as packed with daily activities. So I think the way you build your business, meaning yourself, you do have to use social media maybe a bit more here. I mean, people in the US and Nashville specifically do it, but I mean, there's a good chance if you're playing down on Broadway in Nashville, that's you're going to get a little bit of a scene yourself, and you're going to get to know the people that are going to build you up and bring you up with them. Here, I think it's a much broader spectrum as far as I'll play with 6 different singers in a month. I'll have to learn all their material. So it's just a different animal. I do think they're the same in the way you should treat the business. I think you could work yourself into a gig quickly, and you could, I'd say, faster work yourself out of a good situation. So yeah. I've seen that happen a lot. People come up and, they're the hot ticket, whether it's Nashville or in Canada. And you start believing your own hype. And then before you know it, you're nobody's hype. So
I love that.
Yeah. It's a quick way to work your way out of favor if you don't treat it properly.
Well, I love that, because a lot of people, and I mean, I've had the pleasure of interviewing some very cool people, and they all talk about that exact same thing. But there's something that you're mentioning that I think we just really need to emphasize. And you keep referring to this as work the business, create a business, work your business. And a lot of people don't understand, if you want to be in the music business, you are a business, and you have to treat it that way.
Yeah, I think whether it's, I think the studio is where I noticed it the most, is you're getting somebody in a situation where they're very vulnerable. They maybe have saved up their funds for a year to do this one song. It's very personal. So treat it that way, and treat everybody with the respect they deserve. Maybe they're not great now, but they will get better, and hopefully they take you on that ride. I mean, I watched the Avicii documentary just last night, and I was shocked to see how these relative, I wouldn't say nobodies, but they weren't well-known people, got these opportunities with him, and he kind of carried them on this magic carpet ride to success. So I think you never know when the next person who could take you somewhere is going to walk into your life. So treat everybody with that same respect, and you'll get something good out of this situation if you give something good to it.
I read actually, it's a friend of mine. His name's Jesse Boy Snyder, and anybody wondering who that is, it's Dee Snyder from Twisted Sister's son.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
and he's a very, very smart guy. And we were talking. There's a post about basically people when you're local, how you have to kind of prove to your local people that you're something outside of your local area. And it was all about validation. It was, we don't do a good job of validating our people until other people validate them. Do you find that in the genre that you're in?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we all look for validations in many different ways, but yeah, I think that comes in the ability that you stay busy first off. I think if your phone's ringing,
Mm-hmm.
that's the validity you need because that pays your bills.
Mm-hmm.
But it also helps you build your business. Again, I'll keep saying business, but I mean, it is a business and we need to treat workflow and we need to think of the things, time investment that we have to make. That validity piece is just when people are calling us to come to work on a regular basis. So yeah, I mean, if we're doing all the right things and we're doing the right things the right way, I think we'll be valid in a lot of ways, and that just means being busy and working with other good people who have those core values the same as you.
Again, I actually love how you keep referring it to business because I know I've talked to so many people that have gone to Nashville with no plan, like.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to go to this bar or that bar and somebody's going to see them and they're going to get discovered or they're going to go down and meet somebody and they don't have a plan and they get down there and things don't happen right away and they're discouraged. Maybe talk a little bit about that because really, I mean, it's about goal setting and what your goals are, and often people don't know what their goals are, right?
Yeah, I think it's really good to set goals. I mean, the Nashville thing, you can go down there and you can kind of get stuck on Broadway pretty easily. You can make a decent living doing it. So I think it is good to set goals, like a time frame. Maybe I'm not saying be impatient or anything like that, but set a realistic, maybe 2 or 3 year goal. Or your first year, maybe you want to get so many shifts on there, but there's maybe an artist or two that you would like to work with, and then you're taking that journey to getting to know the people that are around that person. You don't just let the music business happen to you, because if you do, it'll just beat you up. So if you go into it with a plan, with the people you want to work with, and those goals can change too. Maybe you meet somebody while you're there that first year that you really admire, that you want to work with. It's good to work a path to those people, and there's nothing manipulative or dirty about it. It's just being purposeful with your time, because the older I get, time is more valuable than anything, and who you give it to other than yourself is very important, because you don't have, it's not infinite how much you have of it.
And hopefully people are listening to this and you're getting a master class here on things because, again, the message that you're and really, I'm just asking the questions and you're providing the answers for somebody to hear somebody like you that is doing it for a living. Gord Banfield, for our folks that are in the States, Gord is a renowned Canadian country music icon. Is that a safe word to use?
Yeah, he's won a lot of awards. And I stepped away from that gig about a year ago, but he's well known in Canada and he's still going, still having success. So he's another lesson in a lot of our Canadian artists that are still doing it on a daily basis, that you just got to keep plugging and keep working.
Out of curiosity, was it just time? Did you feel it was just time for you to move on to other things?
Honestly, it was COVID happened. Little bit of a career path for me. I got into kind of a day situation that got me into a sales position, which a lot of people would look as a curse as a musician, but I would say if it's honestly benefited me so well in understanding the music business better.
Right.
It's been so good for me. I play as much as I ever have before. I just have kind of a couple focuses that really hone in on the music part for me. I've every opportunity I've had a chance to learn in the business world, I've tried to apply it to music and share that knowledge with other people. Because, man, if anything musicians are bad at is business. And I was one of them. I was exactly like them. I just didn't understand it.
I thank you for saying that. It's like we rehearse this ahead of time because, I was playing over 100 shows a year. COVID happened. It was like, what am I going to do? I just started interviewing some of my people or friends for fun. And all of a sudden I've got this podcast and I'm creeping up on 700 interviews.
Wow.
But I never
Good for
sat
you.
down. Well, thank you. And I never sat down to go, I want to be a podcast host. This is one of my goals. Right? It's going to happen.
Yeah.
But the one thing
Yeah.
that you're talking about, you said something key. You just want to take the info and share it. And I find sometimes for me, and I'd love to find it if you feel you get this, I find sometimes people kind of think that I'm being preachy or I'm being, a know-it-all. But all I'm doing is taking information that I've learned from other smart people that are smarter than me and just sharing it and saying, hey, take it how you want to take it. Do you get that from time to time from people?
Yeah, I think in my career, I've definitely shared my views, sometimes for the good or the bad. But I think if you're doing it from a good place, you let the chips fall how they may. Some people are going to take exception to it. And usually when people take exception to something that they hear, it usually points out a flaw in ourselves, something that we're not secure in. So I think that's a good opportunity to look inward and see why that bothers you. Or maybe, originally when YouTube came out with so many drummers and stuff, I'll be honest, it annoyed me. But the more I almost need to thank those people now, because I really do believe that so many of them have saved the industry. Looking at the post from NAMM this past week, I hadn't seen that kind of exuberance or happiness and curiosity from people, both about product and the people in the business. So I think those are all things that are good. We're going to offend people. I try not to do that too much, but I also think it's good to stand for something in your life, and instead of being just carbon neutral, let's say.
No, and your words about the YouTube drummers, I would agree, because I was fun, so here's another 4-year-old drummer doing Tom Sawyer, but then I was like, okay, well, but if it got those people through the COVID thing, and then if it kind of got people interested, the one thing I think that thing is done, and I don't know if it's done out where you are, but it did make the business, I think, a little too easy to get into, and so it's kind of diluted the whole structure of payment and that type of thing. Do you feel the same way?
Well, yeah, I think music has always been a losing battle in the financial piece of it, but I think the more the good thing is with YouTube and all these things, if we share that business knowledge, it's up to us to teach business as much as it is how to play an instrument. And there'll be people come and go. There'll be people who can play their instrument very well, but the business will beat them down or beat them right out of the business. So, I think it's important that we balance that musical knowledge with the business side of it. And hopefully, better people than probably you or I are going to take that monetary piece and really fight for the right amount of money. I stand pretty firm on what I charge for gigs, and I have. I think when you're experienced and you bring something to the table, you should be paid appropriately. If someone's coming in your house to install a toilet, you probably want someone who's done it a few times instead of someone that just started yesterday. So keep that in mind when you're pricing yourself. Don't be arrogant with your pricing, but justify it, and be able to justify it when you show up and you do a good job.
No, I love that, because again, the whole thing, like, you hear in Halifax, it's almost comical. Well, that guy's just as good, and he's only charging this. Okay, but here's what's going to happen. If he gets invited to a Super Bowl party, the day of, he's going to go to the Super Bowl party and leave you high and dry. And that's a piece of the professional thing that people don't, I think, really understand.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think your word is your word. Like, it has to be that way. Stuff happens in life. You have to move your schedule around or whatever, whether it's a great opportunity for you or stuff happens. But yeah, being able to consider yourself a professional and take this industry very seriously, I think, is important. Like anything, I think the internet has made the path to a music career easier in a lot of ways. So when it gets hard, are they prepared to really dig in? And because it will get hard at some point. I remember when I started drumming, I could sit down and just play beats. It was pretty easy. But when it got hard, that's when I really had to rediscover whether it was something I wanted to do. And
Absolutely.
It wasn't even a question for me. But I've seen other great people with great ability. They just hit a wall and they stop. So.
And you nailed it a couple questions back. I think the mental piece of this thing is the hardest for a lot of people. Making a mistake live and 10 drummers out there laughing or whatever, just things like that, or just negative feedback. That's the hardest thing. And I've I've been fortunate. Sometimes I'm called aloof, but I mean, I don't let that get in my head because there's too many other things going on to worry about what somebody thinks about the way my hair looks or what my drum kit looks like or that I didn't do the fill the right way.
Yeah, well, I think YouTube is a great learning tool, but it hyper focuses on where we are in this moment at this time, and I don't think there's tremendous value in beating yourself up. It does create a really bad comparison in a lot of ways. Just be you. When you're practicing, you don't always have to film it. You could practice in front of a mirror. That's good for self-reflection, let's call it, in front of a mirror. But I think it's important to explore your ability, explore yourself, but that doesn't mean it has to always be public either. I mean, there's tremendous value in having a camera off as much as it is on in those situations.
Well, and I think one thing too that happens is if people, and I know somebody who, does it on a fairly regular basis, and it's great when they get the praise, but if somebody offers up negative feedback and somebody's going to offer up negative feedback, that's what they focus on. They don't focus on the 25, hey, that was awesome. They focus on, your tempo was a little off, right? So, I mean, that's the mental part that we were talking about. Hard to believe on this first inaugural episode of Talking About Country, which is going to be appearing worldwide on my buddy Rob Edwards' network. We're almost done, but you got anything to pitch? You got anything that you got on the go that you want people to know about?
Not terribly, but I am actually going to be making a drum switch here. Some people will go, he's switching again. But I haven't officially endorsed a lot of products in the drum ways. I've gone with a few companies, worked with a few in smaller amounts, but I'm going to be working with Andy DeCoulis here in Canada on the Pearl drum line. So I'm pretty excited about that. I got a couple kits coming here, Maple Gum kit, and then a professional series. So watch my socials. I'll be doing some posts on that. I will be doing more posts coming up this year. It's something I've kind of neglected, but I mean, it's fun. It's a great way to keep in touch with your friends and your compatriots, I guess. So that's kind of what I got on the go. Other than still with Vic Firth, still playing their stuff, Remo, and then Porter and Davies and Fat Chance Creations. I don't know if you know John LaChance, but he builds these fabulous drum clamps that are aircraft aluminum, and they don't choke the drums. So I've been a big fan. It was actually his first endorser years ago, so it's been a good run with him. Still using his stuff.
Well, there you go, kids. Your masterclass ended with how to properly promote those that are taking care of you. So, Chad Melchert, I want to thank you for doing this here.
My pleasure.
Let's stay in touch. This was fun, man. Potty said you were a good guy, and I can now officially confirm that. So, thanks so much, and go subscribe to Chad's socials. Go subscribe to Talk About Country, and we'll see you next time, kids.